Welcome to PC Hardware Therapy and to today's part 2 of the Mini-ITX home server NAS build. In a previous video we have assembled our server, so if you haven't checked that video out, go back here. I will put a link here and in the description. And in this part we are going to set up the software side of things. Now for the OS, since our main focus was for building a NAS and not so much on running VMs, we are going to be using UNRAID. Now UNRAID is built with NAS in mind, with virtualization also possible via Docker and VMs. There are other options available like Proxmox, which is built from ground up as a hypervisor to host Docker containers and VMs, in which you can host your NAS OS, for example TrueNAS. But for our requirements, UNRAID provides an out-of-the-box NAS solution. Now UNRAID is not free. You have to buy a license for $59. But this is a one-time buy. You don't need to pay for a subscription and you're entitled for a lifetime of updates. With the $59 basic version, you're limited to 6 storage devices, and for 12 devices you could go for the $89 version or for an unlimited number of storage devices for the $129 version. Apart from this, there is no other difference between these licenses. One can also go for a trial of 30 days initially and then upgrade to a paid version, which is what I did as well. Just a disclaimer, this is not a sponsored video of UNRAID, nor I am endorsing UNRAID. It is just what I have used for my needs. With that out of the way, let's prepare our OS media to proceed further. Now if you remember from the previous video, I mentioned that we would be using a USB flash drive for the OS. So let's download UNRAID and prepare our USB storage device. One of the first steps is to go to unraid.net to the download page and download the USB creator tool for UNRAID. Depending on your machine, download either the macOS or the Windows version. Once it is downloaded, open it and authorize it to run. In the version, select the stable version. You can also select the next release, which might not be stable yet. Choose the version of UNRAID, select the maximum version for any new installation, and if you're targeting a specific version, then choose that one. Next, select your USB flash drive. It is very important to understand that the license of UNRAID is linked to your flash drive, so you cannot copy or clone your USB flash drive to run multiple servers at the same time. While setting up the storage device, I immediately ran into a problem. No matter what I did, the USB creator tool kept displaying the drive is incompatible and did not enable the right button. I tried switching to a different USB slot, but that did not help either. If someone knows the reason of this, please let me know in the comments below. Instead, I went with the manual installation method. For the manual installation method, download the UNRAID OS manually, and then we have to follow these steps. First, we need to format the drive as FAT32 and give it a volume name as UNRAID. The next step is to extract the UNRAID OS and copy paste the contents onto the flash drive. Now to enable UEFI boot, one has to rename the folder with EFI on the flash drive by removing the last character. In simple terms, UEFI boot offers more security, enables faster boot times, and enables support for disk sizes above 2 TB. To make the USB flash drive bootable, we have to run the file makebootable.bat located on the flash drive as an administrator. After this is done, our setup of the USB flash drive is complete, and we can now remove the flash drive from the machine and insert it into a free USB 3.0 slot in the backside of the server. Let's boot up our machine and let's see if we can get into the BIOS. Press the Del key here. Okay, the system boots. Okay, it's a good start that we are in the BIOS already. As you can see, our CPU is detected correctly here, i5-4460T. The memory 16 gigs is recognized, 2 sticks of 8 gigabytes. The CPU is running quite cool at 26 degrees and the CPU fan is running at 550 RPM. So that's pretty good. And we have just prepared our USB flash drive with UEFI boot option. And that I see is already listed here, which is very good. So I think we can just drag this to the first slot, that it will always use this to boot. And if we go into SATA information, we see that our two iron wolves are listed here correctly in these 1 and 2 slot, and in the 6 slot I put in the surveillance hard drive for network video recording. That is also detected correctly here. There are some things that we need to enable before we get started, so let's do that now. One of the first things we have to make sure is that the virtualization is enabled for the CPU. So let's switch to the advanced mode and see if we can do that. I will also check if this is the latest BIOS of this motherboard. If there is a new version of the BIOS, that would be handy to update right away. I would say let's load optimized defaults. Let's do that. Let's save the changes and reset. Okay. This one I will change the boot order. Let's go into advanced mode once again. Let's see where those settings are for enabling the virtualization on the CPU. So it should be here. Okay, so we have to enable this setting, enable virtualization. Let's save the setup by pressing F10. And let's get back into the BIOS. VDT. This is for memory virtualization. We need to enable this one too. Onboard devices. We have audio, it enabled for now. Wi-Fi we can disable. We don't need it. Bluetooth also disable. AS media, okay, that we need. Intel LAN controller, that we definitely need for the server. Advanced power management, we'll leave that to default for now. We might have to revisit this. Let's save all the changes and reset. So I just checked, and this is actually the latest BIOS for this motherboard. Let's boot and see how UNRAID looks like. Now it should boot from the USB stick. So what it says is the system found unauthorized changes on the firmware, operating system or UEFI drivers. Secure boot. OS type. I think this is what I need to change probably to other OS. So let's try this and save changes and reset. Okay, that worked. So let's open UNRAID OS in GUI mode. Now with that we have UNRAID loading. I'm not sure whether it's because the whole OS needs to be loaded from the flash drive that it is slow, or is it something on this system. I'm not sure if this is normal, but we'll see. Okay, seems like we are loading. So the first thing we have to do is enter root as the username. The password is blank. Okay, so this is where we have to purchase or start a trial, but the machine needs to be connected to internet. So I've just put in a network cable in the server and I click on start trial, and now it says the date and time is incorrect, which is true. It's not 8:20 here. So let's see how we can change that. Maybe from settings. Okay, date and time. I'm in Europe, so I will choose this time zone. Use NTPs, yes. Click apply. I think we can continue and configure our trial license. So let's go to the dashboard here, and I click on start trial. So it's now installing a trial. Okay, now the trial is enabled. It recommends to install these plugins to have real-time monitoring and the My Servers plugin. I will go ahead and do that. So it is now done installing those plugins. I believe at some moment I need to log in and hook it up with my UNRAID account. Yeah, that's what it wants to do. So I will sign up now and then come back later and we can look at the setup further. So now I have registered to UNRAID and installed the trial license. It was still showing up as Tower. This name I really don't like, so I'm going to rename my server to, let's say, Home Vault. The description, file server, let's apply this. The description on the top should change. Okay, now it's called Home Vault. Let's see. So we've installed our server, we've installed my server's plugin. The next step is to assign devices to your array and pool. And for this, let's go to main. Here we have to assign a parity drive and a data drive. Let's pick our first drive, which is the ST4000VN008. Let's select this as the parity drive, and the first disk drive is this one, and I don't want to select the third drive. And then what we need to do is to start the array. Now to start the array, let's scroll down, and here we can actually start the array. So let's click on the start button, proceed to start. Yes, parity disk content will be overridden, proceed. So now it's about to start the array. Okay, so we are actually now in business. The parity sync is now going on. So it's an array of 2 disks. This is an unassigned device which I plan to use for network video recording. We have a couple of messages here. The parity sync has started and the parity disk sync is in progress. That will take some time. Here it says the status is invalid because the parity sync is going on. The sync is going to take 5 hours and 46 minutes, and before that I don't think it's letting us format the array. So let's leave it doing its thing and come back later to see if we can format our drive. After the parity sync was completed, the disks were shown as unmountable. But I was then able to click on the format button, and here we see the end result of it, with the array being ready for use. The surveillance drive remains unassigned to the array. As a general principle for home use, you don't want to put video recordings from your home security cameras onto your array, as this will put a lot of strain on it, as each video will be stored redundantly on multiple disks, which can result in reduced lifespan of your disks. After setting up the array, I was very curious about the CPU utilization and the running frequency. Now the utilization is visible on the dashboard but not the frequency. In order to find that out, one needs to go into the terminal window and run the command below to show a live overview of all CPU cores. Our CPU is rated at 1.9 GHz base clock and 2.7 GHz boost. But here we see that it is operating at a very low frequency, suggesting that power management is working well here. Now that we have set up our array, are we ready to use it yet? Well, not quite. One of the very important things to be done here is to reserve a static IP address for your server. This needs to be done on your router. Now every router does this differently, so consult the router manual, but usually it will be in the section of DHCP. This reservation is made on the basis of the MAC address of the network card of the server. To get the MAC address and to set the static IP address, go to the settings and then click on network settings. Take note of the MAC address, set the address assignment to static, and set an available IP address on your network. You will need to put these details for your IP reservation on your router. Enter the DNS servers if they are blank. In the third DNS server, you can always put 8888, which is the DNS server of Google. Once you have entered this information, then press done. Before we create a share and start using our NAS, it is a good idea to first create a user, which we will be using to access the share. To create a user, go to the Users tab and then click on the Add User button. Enter a username and a description. For instance, you can enter the name of the person or the account in the description. I would actually keep the username in lowercase just to keep case sensitivity out of the equation, and it makes it easier to set it up from another device. Enter a strong password and then click Add and then Done. Also remember, when we set up UNRAID initially, that the password for the root account was blank. At this stage, it's a good idea to also set a strong password for this account by clicking on the root user. To create a share, go to the Shares tab and click on the Add Share. I've created one already, so let's have a look at that one. Enter a share name, and once again, I would keep it all in lowercase to avoid case sensitivity. I would keep everything else as default. The only thing we need to set is we need to give permissions to the user we created before in order to access this share. Let us now see how we can access our share from a Windows machine. First, open the File Explorer, go to the three dots on the top and select the option Map Network Drive. Pick an available drive letter in the folder path, enter the IP address or URL of the server followed by the name of the share. Make sure that your machine is on the same network as your server. After that, click on the option Connect using different credentials. This will allow us to connect using the username we created earlier instead of the default Windows username. Click Finish, and as soon as you do that, you will be prompted for the credentials. Here, enter the username and password of the account we created earlier. Click on Remember My Credentials and press OK. Now you will be able to access your network drive just like any other drive on your PC. UNRAID also comes with a big community which is developing apps and plugins for the platform. And one such plugin is Fix Common Problems, which I would recommend to start with. It helps identify common configuration errors or problems and suggests solutions. As you get more experience with the platform, you can start expanding the usability of your server. With that, we have successfully set up our NAS server, and we have also seen how we can access it from another computer in the same network. Now, if you like this video, hit the like button, and if you would like to be notified of the part 3 of this series where I'll set up the home surveillance system using this server and multiple security cameras, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That's all we have for now. See you again in the next one. Bye.